I'm on my fifth take. Every single time I try to discuss just this movie, I end up discussing the Dragon Ball Z games. I end up ranting on the games. I end up ranting on the previous movies. I end up ranting on the show. I end up ranting on DLC practices in modern Dragon Ball. I end up doing a bunch of ranting and off-topic stuff that I just completely forget to discuss just this film. So I've put everything else away. All I've got here now is this, and this is the only thing that we're going to be discussing. Dragon Ball Super Hero. There's been a lot of divisive takes for this movie. People either really like the new animation style, which is a combination of 2D and 3D techniques, or they would hate this new animation style and would prefer the Dragon Ball Super Broly animation style instead. To which I can sympathize. I do think the animation in Dragon Ball Super Broly is superior, specifically because it's using primarily 2D animation techniques. It has never looked better, in my opinion. Though I can appreciate the 2D and 3D combination animation techniques in this film. Though, if I'm going to give it a criticism, I think it looks a little bit too video gamey, in my opinion. No, I really enjoyed it. These two are my two favorite characters in this entire franchise, Piccolo and Gohan. I believe Piccolo's in front, followed by Gohan. So, a movie focusing on them hasn't happened. I don't think it's ever happened, really. Piccolo has never been of major focus in these movies. In Dead Zone, I guess you could say he was the deuteragonist. In World's Strongest, he was relegated to plot device. In Lord Slug, he had a little bit of a higher role. In Tree of Might, he did nothing. In Cooler's Revenge, he did have some good stuff in Cooler's Revenge. I really liked him in that. But after that, he has been doing nothing in these movies other than show up, get beaten up, and that's it. That's all he does. There's no story surrounding his character. He's just left in the shadows. He's just thrown in the background, and there's whatever. He just shows up to fight, gets beat up, whatever. So, this is technically, at least as far as my opinion goes, this is the first movie to focus on Piccolo as a character that I have seen. And I can really appreciate that because he's my favorite character. And before people, I'm going to go over a bunch of the cons in out of order as I think about that, as I think of them. This is going to be a rambling video. I'm going to call it Rambling on Dragon Ball Superhero, right? Okay. One of the major cons I notice people have with Piccolo character here is both kind of his animation and also his new transformation and how he gets his power up in the movie. And I think the movie does have a little bit of a self-awareness to his transformation. Bulma has a bunch of vain wishes on the Dragon Balls, and she's been doing that yearly. She's been wishing away her wrinkles barely. She's been doing skin tone uplifting. She's been doing body tone boostings and figures and vanity stuff. She's using the Eternal Dragon for that stuff, and it's played as a joke. It's intended to be a joke. If people take this movie seriously, like they watched Dragon Ball Super Broly and thought that this series is supposed to be a serious series, if anybody ever thought that Dragon Ball is supposed to be serious, they are sorely mistaken. This film harkens back to that OG Dragon Ball era of silliness, particularly the first half, up to the Red Ribbon Army arc. It basically is a sequel to the Red Ribbon Army arc of the Android Saga, which, in my opinion, the Android Saga is one of the weaker sagas of Dragon Ball Z, though we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the poor plot points and all that stuff, and how it was poor in the Android Saga to begin with. So them going off those things, kind of playing it up as a joke in this movie to begin with, was actually pretty smart in my opinion. I could appreciate it. So Piccolo wishing to have his potential unlocked through the dragon, the eternal dragon. He's basically wishing to have his potential unlocked the same way that Elder Guru on Namek unlocked Gohan and Krillin's potentials. And basically, people didn't like how cheap that was, how you could just wish on the eternal dragon to just get stronger. And honestly, let's be honest here, power-ups in this show have never been strong to begin with, in regards to, like, plot strong. They've always been plot MacGuffins, they've always been shortcuts, they've always been corner cuts, many of them have never made sense with the increments of power increases, particularly in the Frieza saga. Let's be honest with ourselves. The Zenkai exists solely for characters to keep up with the enemies. At least you gave the characters a year to train for the Saiyan saga. There is no time to train in the Frieza saga, so they have to get stronger for these enemies somehow, so they invent Zenkais, they invent the potential unlocks, they have random insane power boosts from Senzu Beans, Zenkais, for no reason. Goku uses 3 Senzu Beans in the 6 days that he trains to master 100 times gravity to get to Namek. And he goes from roughly 8,000 power level to 90,000 base power level with no Kaioken added to it. And then, 1 healing pod later, he goes from being beaten up by Ginyu, from 90,000, he goes from being beaten up by Ginyu to over 3 million. 90,000 to 3 million. Let's compare that with Vegeta, with one of Vegeta's Zenkais. His first Zenkai, after 18,000 off of his defeat on Earth, he goes up to roughly about 24 to 26,000. Enough to defeat Kui and Dodoria by himself. Zarbon transforms into monster form, and he's able to defeat Vegeta. Vegeta goes through another healing section, and he gets from 24,000 to like 30,000 or something, which is enough to defeat Monster Zarbon now. And then he gets defeated by Raccoon. And then suddenly his Zenkai is enough to make him able to go toe-to-toe with First Form Frieza, who is roughly 550,000. And if that's not enough, he gets another healing ability, White Mage Crap, from Dende, after is going from like 300,000 to 2 million. The power boosts have never made sense in this show. The potential unlocks with Guru just having that ability out of nowhere. They've been like this. So Piccolo just wishing on the Dragon Balls to get stronger is not new. It's not. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's just as weak as half of the other stuff we've seen before, which means this is nothing new. Which means this is not worse than what came before. It's just not better either. Okay? Okay. Now, his new design here, you might argue, is a little bit lazy. In his base form, his arms have the green lines and animation and stuff like that. But when he transforms this potential unlock form, the lines vanish from his arms outside of the muscle areas. You know, those 3 little orange, blue, yellow areas or whatever. But the green part of his arm, they don't have the little lines and crap that you normally see. What can I use for reference? I knew I had a Piccolo on my desk somewhere. Half a Piccolo. I don't know if you can see this on this. Oh yeah, you definitely can't see this. But on his arms, there are green liney veins going across every which way in the middle of the pink crap. On the green area, there's liney stuff. If you're a fan of this series, you know what I'm talking about. It's not on his chest, it's just on his arms. We don't know why they're on his arms, but they are. So when he transforms, the liney stuff on his arms go away. And you might argue that it's easier to animate him in this new style when he doesn't have as much stuff to draw, so as to say. And Cell Max, I believe he's on the back here, maybe, I think, possibly, I don't know. Oh, there we go, look at that, an example of his potential unlock form in his normal form. You can see the lines on his arms here, they're not here, there you go. But Cell Max is not on the back like I thought he was. Cell Max's design is basically taken from Semi-Perfect Cell, or second form Cell, as you might call it, from the Cell Saga. And, you know how in Cell's forms, he has a bunch of... Oh, let me find... I knew I had a Cell somewhere. Here we go. You see all this dark, spotty spot stuff? Well, they don't have that on the Cell in the show, except when he does this power-up thing. When he gets mad, these spots show up and glow purple and explode with power coming out of them like small little holes. But when he's not doing that, you don't see it. It's just a solid color. And that feels like they did that specifically so that they wouldn't have to animate that. All the dots, draw that all the time. They only do it occasionally. Cutting corners where they can. And some people didn't really like that. I don't care, to be honest with you. Toriyama is no stranger to cutting corners. He's never been a stranger to it. In fact, he's been cutting corners since before he even started this franchise. Okay? Do I have... Let me see here. No, I don't have it. I'm not going to go get up and get it. In the first arc, the first season of the original Dragon Ball, we are introduced to capsules. These capsules are little devices that could store things like vehicles to houses. And Toriyama came up with this because he wanted to cut some corners creatively. He didn't want to have to remember where the characters parked their cars, or where the characters last left their house. So why not just take it with them? They press a little button on the device, and it transforms into a small little capsule. You can pick it up and put it in your pocket. Which means that if they pull a little capsule out of their pocket, they press the button, and they throw it out, and a vehicle pops up. That way, Toriyama could show off all of his cool vehicle designs without having to remember where he parked the cars. It's genius. It's brilliant. But it is an example of cutting corners at the very start of this franchise that I'm not surprised to see that it's still happening with animation and art styles. The Super Saiyan transformation was made gold and blonde so that the inking of the hair didn't have to happen as much. All of this, the more Cell transformed, the less dots were on the body of Cell because of all of the spots. Less spots, easier to draw, less time. And as time went on with this franchise, the backgrounds got less varied. In the original Dragon Ball, in the first half of the season, we got to see a bunch of varied and different biomes. But by the time of Dragon Ball Z, most of the battle with Vegeta is in a wasteland. Most of the battle with Frieza... Namek is basically a wasteland. The whole planet is a wasteland. Most of the Android Saga, the battles are taking place in arid wastelands. In the Buu Saga, most of the battles are taking place in wastelands, or on the Kaioshin homeworld, which is also pretty much a wasteland. The backgrounds aren't as varied the further into this franchise you go. So, it's like minimalizing the appearance of Piccolo is nothing new. It's fine. The same thing with Cell Max not having all of his spots all the time. That's fine. I don't have any problems with that. But what I can really appreciate, though, is I did show you this guy before. Look at the color of Piccolo's arms for a second. You see that? And you see that? Now let me tell you where that comes from. It's based off of his manga design, as you can see here, We have his manga design, which is yellow here instead of pink. The design was probably a Toei or something that they just did, and they just stuck with it. They never changed it or fixed it rather. So there's, and also yes, this is an older copy, $7.95. But most of the designs for these characters are based off their manga designs, especially for all of the Red Ribbon Army characters. Many of the characters from Magenta to many of the people working at the Red Ribbon Army, there's an animation style to these guys that feel reminiscent to the manga's animation style in early Dragon Ball, which was something that I really could appreciate. I really enjoyed it because if I'm being honest with you, I like the manga more than the anime. It takes a lot less time to read through all 42 volumes of the manga than it does to watch hundreds of episodes of the anime. I'm being completely honest with you. I'd rather read the manga, and I really appreciate the manga. The manga is beautiful. It's amazing. It's just fantastic. And if you want to get through this series and save yourself a lot of time, do the manga. It's a lot easier and faster. Trust me, it's superior. A lot of the fillers, all the fillers cut out. You just get the story, the core story, and it's good. But yeah, that's why Piccolo's got his his yellow things. It's because he's based off his manga appearance and not the other appearance. In fact, this whole film feels like it's calling back to original Dragon Ball rather than to Z. Because Piccolo, like I'm showing here with volume 16 here, this is giant Piccolo. There's mini Goku here. Goku hasn't changed size. It's Piccolo who's changed size. He's become a giant. But this little design here, giant Piccolo, we haven't seen that since. Like, when Piccolo goes giant in this movie, it's the first time he's done that since this. He didn't even do it in Lord Slug, the movie Lord Slug. I was expecting him to, because Lord Slug went giant, but Piccolo never did to counter that. It made no sense, but, I really liked the giant Piccolo idea. I really enjoyed having it seeing it used here. Krillin being the one to remind Piccolo that he can do it. It's dumb, but I like it. Everybody forgets that they can do anything in this show. That's how the writer can get away with characters not doing things. He just says, oh, they forgot, when really it's the writer who forgot they can do it. It's a good example of corner cutting. You can tell the Toriyama's face. His style is all over this movie. In fact, let me see. Does it show? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Original story. Akira Toriyama. Producers. This is the English version. Executive producers. Kozo Morishita. Akio Yoko. Toriyama Akira. Character design. Toriyama Akira. Art director. Nobuhito Suu. Music, animation production, director Tetsuro Kodama, or Kodama Tetsuro. Yeah, whatever. But you could tell that Toriyama had a lot more of a role in this, in the character designs, in the animation, all of it. He had a stronger role in this. It feels like it, at least, because the designs in Dragon Ball Super in the previous movie, they were nothing like they were here. Gohan's got a new hair design. Goten and Trunks have aged up, and I honestly do like that they just gave him a random growth spurt. And they're roughly around the same age that Trunks was in his Future History of Trunks special. Trunks is roughly the same age there now. So yeah, that makes sense to give him a growth spurt. It's fine. I don't like that they made his hair blue again, but that's neither here nor there. This movie is mainly about Gohan and Piccolo. Everybody else is just there for filler. Krillin is always there for filler. I'm glad that he's here for filler. He's not really filler, you know what I mean. Like, when they show up, they fight the bad guy, and the bad guy just beats the guy away because he's not the main character. They're just there for support. Krillin's a support cast character, right? He wasn't there doing that in the past 3 Dragon Ball movies. He didn't do that in the last 2 Dragon Ball Z movies, which were Janemba and Hirudegarn. He didn't do that in there. But from Dead Zone all the way up to Bio Broly, Krillin had consistently had a role in the story in some way, shape, or form, with the possible exception of the first Broly movie, where he was just relegated to comedic relief. Either way, I liked that Krillin comes back. I liked that 18 shows up. I liked that Goten and Trunks show up, but I don't like that they don't transform into Super Saiyans to help out. It does show that they have been slacking. They forgot how to fuse, so we get fat Gotenks, which was funny. They didn't maximize it as much as I wished they could. This film really could have used an extra 10 to 15 minutes, if I'm being completely honest with you. We have a feature runtime of 100 minutes here. Let's see, let me find Battle of Gods. In Battle of Gods, the runtime is 105 minutes. Look at that. So this one's the longer one. Let's see how long Broly was real quick. Where is the runtime on it? 100 minutes. So Battle of Gods remains the longest Dragon Ball Z movie to date. This could have been the longest Dragon Ball Z movie to date. If you added 5 to 10 minutes of footage, give Gotenks a little bit more time to do stuff, give Android 18 Krillin a little bit more time. It's good. Now, people complained about the first act, saying that it had a slow start. I would like to direct you to Broly's first act, which is basically just the backstory. If you're talking about a slow start, there's that. You know, it's setting up the world, but that's exactly what the first act of this movie's doing. It's just doing it in a different way. You remember the designated leisure activity in all the other previous Dragon Ball movies. It's basically like that, but instead of just being an unrelated thing, it's still setting up the story. And yes, Magenta is likable. Yes, Dr. Hido is likable. Yes, that other guy who's fashionable is likable. So I liked getting those characters to be introduced, and I liked them bantering with one another. I liked learning the backstory of the Red Ribbon Pharmaceutical Company. I liked all of that. And there's one thing that I noticed that I don't know if other people have noticed, but on Commander Magenta's desk, there's a picture of his father, Commander Red. And then there's a picture of Colonel Violet. And then I did some research. When you combine the colors of red and violet together, when you mix those two colors together, you get magenta. Is Colonel Violet Magenta's mother? That's something. I also liked that Dr. Hido is the son of Android 16, Android 16's human counterpart. Android 16's human counterpart was the son of Dr. Gero. And while Dr. Gero's son was not exactly a genius like his father was, he had a heart of gold. So Dr. Hido is basically a combination of Dr. Gero and Dr. Gero's son. He has Android 16's heart, but he has Dr. Gero's brilliance. I liked that combination. I really do. It was a really good choice behind that character. And I also liked the Colonel Violet illusion. Calling him Magento. It was genius. Pure genius. So I liked the first act. I'm going to be honest with you. In fact, if this whole film was very little fighting at all, and was just that type of chill, slice of life, spice of life type of storytelling, I would have been fine with it, honestly. I would. It wouldn't have been successful, but I would have been fine with it, because if I'm being honest with you, I like those types of stories more now than I do constant knockdown, drag out. The fighting, though, is excellent in both Broly and in this one. In fact, I would probably think that the fighting in this one is almost superior in a lot of ways. Though the techniques are a lot better utilized in certain places in Broly than they are in here. But I like that they expand Piccolo's moveset. They give him, like, this type of telekinetic type of abilities where he can, like, levitate objects around him. He was able to, like, form a giant boulder out of a bunch of smaller rocks, and he tossed it at the Gamma 2. It was excellent. That was some really good use of the Piccolo character, and I could really appreciate it. The orange Piccolo thing, I don't have a problem with the design. I have a problem with the name. I've had problems with transformation names since Super began. I have no problems with Super Saiyan God. I think the name Super Saiyan Blue is dumb. I was not a fan of Super Saiyan Rosé. I have no problems with Ultra Instincts. Ultra Instinct is perfect. I love it. I don't care for Ultra Ego. I think that's one of the dumbest names ever. And I'm also not a fan of Orange Piccolo. If you ask me, I think a better name would have just called him Super Namek or Super Piccolo. You know, Vegeta called himself Super Vegeta. Call Piccolo Super Piccolo. Superhero! Come on! You missed opportunity! And then Gohan's new form, they call him Beast Gohan or Gohan Beast. I'm not the biggest fan of that name either. But the design, I have no problems with. I love the design. His design is a point of divisiveness. People either really like it or they really don't. Same with Piccolo's new form. They either really like it or they mostly really don't. I have no problem with the designs for the transformations. I just wish that we had a little bit more time with Beast Gohan. That means it really feels like this is more of a Piccolo movie than a Gohan movie. Which I'm okay with, because Piccolo's one of my favorite characters. And I like that they pulled Gohan out of the sidelines to bring him back in, because the plot is basically telling you that Gohan has always been this strong. He's never needed God training. He's never needed any of that crap. He just needed to get his head where it needs to be. And Piccolo's usually the one to help bring that out of him. But I will say this joke that Piccolo is Gohan's real dad type of nonsense is annoying. Goku is an excellent father to Gohan in his own ways. And I was able to see that in the Rosat section. Gohan and Goku have a great bond. They do. They have an excellent bond. And you were also able to see that in Dead Zone, where Goku goes to save his son. It was an excellent callback. You know, Gohan's here to save his daughter, Goku's here to save his son. But Goku doesn't have the rage boosts that his son does have, you know. But I loved that idea that parallels Dead Zone with the Red Ribbon Army arc, with a lot of other things. I love the parallels this movie does. It's excellent. The Gammas, let's talk about the Gammas. I have no problems with them at all. I loved them. They're excellent. I want to see more of Gamma 1 in future movies. Make him a main character. I don't care. I love him. Rebuild Gamma 2 somehow, some way. Make him Gamma 3. I don't know. 2.5. I don't care. Bring him back. I don't care how you do it. Bring him back. He's awesome. This one's better than Gamma 1. What else? The Cell Max design, I had no problems with it. He's a giant form monster, mindless. It's not a complete rehash of Cell, so that's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. People have been wanting Cell to come back in some way, shape, or form, and I was one of the people that wished that he never would. I wish that Cell would never come back, because Frieza coming back was one too many. You know, we don't need everybody coming back. We already have Boo having reformed. We already have Frieza now back and about. Vegeta is a reformed main character. What, you want to bring Cell, the only holdout of a main villain, to just bring him back too? Why not bring back Boss Carrot while we're at it? Oh, man. But I liked mostly everything in this film. I love the Pan and Piccolo dynamic. It was excellent. Pan is 3 years old in the story. She has an eloquent method of speaking, which dictates to her father, being a bookworm, probably is teaching her how to speak, all that stuff. And her mother, being extremely rich, being the daughter of Hercule Satan, the second richest man on the planet. Yes, I do think Dr. Briefs is more rich, has more money. I do think so, yes. What else? Yes, in the original story of Dragon Ball, in Volume 17, or Volume 1 of Dragon Ball Z, the manga, when Bulma asks Gohan how old he is, he ends up holding up 3 fingers, but the chat bubble said he sees 4. He was originally meant to be 3, so if we're being honest with ourselves, Piccolo trained Gohan when he was originally 3 years old, much like he's training Pan when she's 3 years old. So that's a nice little parallel. That's fine. I like how Piccolo's getting on Gohan's case about spending more time with his daughter because he's turning into his father. Goku was more focused on training than taking care of Gohan. Now Gohan's focused more on studying than he is taking care of Pan. It's a great parallel. I liked that. I love how Gohan's very oblivious and innocent in nature, just like his father. He's just in a completely different way of slacking off and stuff. But his bond with Pan is real, it's genuine, it's adorable at the end when they go and embrace. It's fine, it's great, it's excellent stuff here. I know this is not like what people were expecting. This is not what some big world-ending event. And I honestly want to say that things don't have to be a world-ending event. Not everything has to be Broly. Not every movie has to be Broly. Not every movie has to deal with some cosmic world-ending problem next this way and that. Sometimes it's good to have a movie like this. And honestly, I feel a lot of people are probably going to end up comparing it to being the Bio Broly of the Dragon Ball Super era, and I honestly feel like that's undeserved. Though, I really liked one thing about Bio Broly. The first half of Bio Broly, before the Bio Broly monster actually shows up, was excellent. I loved it. I loved the Hercule and Android 18 dynamic. I loved the Goten and Trunks fiddling around this way and that with her Android 18 and Hercule, Mr. Satan. And I really enjoyed the return of that shaman guy from Broly's Second Coming. I liked that. I loved the Bio Warrior stuff. It was excellent. It had a lot of promise. And I am reminded of Bio Broly when I watch this movie, because it's a rehash of bringing in a Bio Warrior like Cell Max with this genius rich guy and needing funding and all that stuff. It has a lot of calls to previous things, but I like the way that Superhero initiates it, if that makes sense. I feel like this film deserves more than the hate that it tends to get. I feel like it should have gotten a higher box office turnout, but I can understand why it didn't. I really can. Broly is a fan favorite in the West. He has always been a fan favorite. Everybody loved him. He's basically a wrestling character. His moveset's based on wrestling. Grabs people by the face and slams them down. Of course he's going to be a big character here. So of course Dragon Ball Super Broly is going to make big box office numbers here. And I can understand why this one would pale in the box office here compared to Broly. But in Japan, if I remember correctly, this one made more money than Broly. Let's think about that. Wow, surprising. Does that mean the people in Japan have no taste? No! This movie was made for the people in Japan to begin with! This wasn't made for America! This wasn't made for the United States! This was a Japanese animation project made for the people who live in Japan that just happens to get localized elsewhere. So if this makes more money than Broly in Japan, that just means that it's superior in a lot of ways to the people that they're making things catering to, you know? That's just how I like to think about it, at any rate. It's my ramble videos. That's my ramble videos on Dragon Ball Superheroes. It's a very good time. I would love to watch it again. I'd love to watch it a third time. And compared to Dragon Ball Super Broly, I have not felt an itch to rewatch that film as much as I have with Dragon Ball Super Superhero. As I just watched this yesterday, and I want to watch it again today. I want to watch it twice today. I want to watch it 3 times. I want to watch it 4 times. It is excellent. Give it a shot.